The Taliban terrorists are on a killing spree in Afghanistan ever since United States has called off any further peace talks with Taliban. A slew of suicide bomb blasts are being witnessed all over the country, killing dozens of security personnel and civilians. The Taliban terrorists have continued to carry out near daily attacks with presidential elections due at the end of the month. We have a report.
In the wake of collapsed peace talks with the United States and just over a week before Afghanistan's presidential elections, Taliban suicide bombers killed at least 48 people in two separate attacks in Afghanistan. One of the deadliest among series of attacks carried out by Taliban terrorists in the last 1 month, the suicide bomb blast in Charikar city of Parwan province killed 26 people and left over 42 others injured. As per the police chief of Parwan province, a motorcyclist detonated a suicide bomb at a checkpoint leading to a rally where President Ashraf Ghani was addressing the public in central Parwan province.
When the people were entering the police camp, an old man riding a motorcycle arrived on the highway and detonated his explosives, causing casualties. His dead body remains on the ground.
Just over an hour later, another explosion went off in Kabul, near the Green Zone where the Defense Ministry, US Embassy and NATO headquarters are located. The suicide bomb blast killed 22 people and left 38 others wounded.
I was waiting at the entrance of the recruitment center when a man approached me and said, "Let me get inside." I was standing behind two men in the line when suddenly a blast occurred.
In a statement claiming responsibility for both the blasts, Taliban spokesman Zabihullah Mujahid said the attack near Ghani's rally was deliberately aimed at disrupting elections scheduled for 28 September.
We already warned people not to attend election rallies. If they suffer any losses, that is their own responsibility.
Ghani, who was speaking to his supporters at the time of the explosion, remained unhurt and later condemned the attack, saying the incident proved the Taliban had no real interest in reconciliation.
As the Taliban continue their crimes, they once again prove that they are not interested in peace and stability in Afghanistan.
After killing more than 48 civilians in Parwan and Kabul, a Taliban suicide bomber, along with two gunmen, attacked a government's electronic identification registration center in Jalalabad, killing 2 civilians and leaving many injured. A day later, at least 20 people were killed and over 90 others suffered injuries in a truck explosion detonated by a Taliban suicide bomber near Kandahar Hospital in Kalat city of Afghanistan's Zabul province.
کار میکاوی حالت می وظیفه ده او دیجیو دفتر سدی دی شپخانه دی څنګه سره چې د سهار شپږ نیمې بجې وي د پټاو وشو ولا درک معلوم نشو د کومه لار راغلی په کومه باندې پټاو شو او د شپخانه خو یو مخاوره شوه موږ دفتر هم نیمه ونړېدې د چتونه او دیوالونه ټول چپه کړ او موږ خپله په دفتر کې زموږ همکاران شو یو زخمی شو یو بل وغایم راوړی دلته چې کندهار چینی شپخانې ته راوړی دی نور حال نه لرم څوک مړه دي څوک نه دي او زخمیان ډېر وو بیخي بیا د ډېر زخمی.
Ever since US officials have withdrawn from any further peace negotiations with Taliban, the number of attacks in Afghanistan has spiked. In just a week, Taliban terrorists have caused a large number of casualties among civilians and security forces in Afghanistan. Meanwhile, Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan, gauging an opportunity to rework its agenda of establishing Pak-backed Taliban regime in Afghanistan, had announced to address UN General Assembly on reviving US-Taliban peace talks. While attending a ceremony at Pakistan's Tokram border crossing, he said,
I assure you that we will use full force so that these dialogues proceed further. It is unfortunate that these peace talks were suspended.
Pakistan's nefarious agenda behind its support of the US-Taliban peace deal was later exposed at the United Nations Human Rights Council when Bilal Sarve, a human rights activist from Afghanistan, accused Pakistan of supporting Taliban's Haqqani network and spreading terrorism in the war-torn nation.
President, Pakistan's army and its intelligence services provide institutional support to terrorist groups in Afghanistan. The support includes military-grade explosives, training in sanctuaries. In major Pakistani cities, there are madrasas where fighters are trained, recruited in hate speeches against Afghanistan, in its international partners are prevalent. Funding is publicly raised in the name of jihad or holy war. The Pakistan-based militant network, the Haqqani networks famously described as the vertebral arm of the Pakistani intelligence service, the ISI, is responsible for some of the most deadliest terrorist attacks in my city, Kabul. Such horrific truck bombs, suicide attacks, and complex attacks have murdered innocent Afghans. Our cities, our schools, our clinics, our funerals, and our weddings have been targeted by these brutal and deadly terrorist attacks. The leader of the Haqqani network, Sirajuddin Haqqani, is the deputy head of operations for the Taliban. He enjoys institutional support, sanctuary, and financial support from Pakistani army and intelligence services. The Haqqani network has a generational, historical, and ideological relationship with Al-Qaeda. Pakistani-sponsored terrorism has resulted in the deaths of Afghan military, international aid workers, civilians, children, and very often entire families have vanished due to these attacks.
Taliban terrorists, largely supported and funded by Pakistan, are agitated with the fall of peace deals between US and Taliban. They are waging attacks one after the other on Afghan civilians and security forces to create mayhem and dissuade citizens from participating in presidential election process. The US-Taliban peace deal would have played out benefactory to the foreign parties, but for Afghan citizens, either peace deal or no peace deal, both scenarios bring no accord.